At exactly 8:10 every morning, the billionaire left a $10 bill on the table. Not 20, not 50, always 10. And every morning the waitress took it without asking questions. Until one Tuesday, the waitress noticed something that made her blood run cold. The $10 bill wasn't a tip. It had been marked. A tiny black dot was printed beneath the serial number. And when she looked at the billionaire's face, she realized something even stranger. He wasn't watching her. He was watching the man sitting 3 tables behind her. Emma Reed had worked at the Riverside Grill in downtown Chicago for almost 4 years. She knew the regulars, the businessman who ordered pancakes every Wednesday, the elderly couple who shared one slice of pie, the construction workers who arrived at 6 every morning, and then there was Daniel Cross. Daniel never looked like he belonged there. He wore perfectly tailored suits. He arrived in a black luxury sedan, and the watch on his wrist probably cost more than the entire diner. Everyone knew who he was. Daniel Cross was the 38-year-old founder of Crosswell Technologies, a billionaire, a man who appeared on business magazines, television interviews, and newspaper covers. Yet every morning he came to the same small diner. At exactly 8:10, he ordered black coffee, nothing else. He sat at table 17, and after 15 minutes he left. But before leaving, he always placed a $10 bill beneath his coffee cup. Emma had counted. He had done it 312 times. One morning, her coworker just leaned over the counter. "You're still counting his money." Emma smiled. "I just don't understand it." "What's there to understand? He could leave 100. Maybe $10 means something to him." "Maybe." Jess laughed. "Maybe he likes you." Emma nearly dropped the coffee pot. "Stop. I'm serious. He's a billionaire. So, and I'm a waitress." Jess shrugged. "Last time I checked, billionaires were still human." Emma rolled her eyes, but secretly she had wondered the same thing. Not whether he liked her, but why he kept coming back, because Daniel barely spoke. He never flirted. Never asked for her phone number. Never stayed longer than 20 minutes. He simply came in, drank his coffee, left $10, and disappeared. Until the morning, everything changed. It was raining heavily that Tuesday. Emma was carrying a tray toward Daniel's table when a strange man walked into the diner. He wasn't dressed like a customer. Dark coat, dark baseball cap, no umbrella. He looked around the room. Then he sat 3 tables behind Daniel. Emma noticed something strange. The man never ordered anything. He just watched the door. Then he looked at Daniel. Daniel noticed him too. Their eyes met for less than a second. Daniel immediately looked away. Emma placed his coffee on the table. "Everything okay?" Daniel looked at her. "Why? You seem distracted." "I'm fine." He reached for his wallet. Emma smiled. "You haven't even finished your coffee." "I know." He placed the $10 bill on the table. Then he said something she had never heard him say before. "Emma, when I leave, don't go outside." She froze. "What?" "Just trust me." Before she could ask another question, Daniel stood up. He walked toward the exit, but instead of leaving through the front door, he turned toward the kitchen. Emma watched him disappear through the staff entrance. 5 seconds later, she heard a door slam in the alley behind the diner. Then silence. She looked at the $10 bill. Something felt wrong, very wrong. Emma picked up the $10 bill. She turned it over. Nothing. She held it beneath the diner light. Then she noticed a tiny black mark beside the serial number. She had seen it before. On every $10 bill Daniel had left, she suddenly remembered something. The first bill, the second, the 100th, all of them had the same tiny mark. Emma had assumed it was a printing defect. But now she wasn't so sure. She pulled out her phone and took a photograph. Then she searched the serial number. Nothing. She tried another. Nothing. Finally, she searched the strange symbol itself. A small black circle with a tiny line through the middle. Her stomach dropped. It wasn't a bank symbol. It wasn't a printing mark. It was a symbol used by an old private security company. A company that had been shut down 15 years earlier. Argent Security. Emma stared at the screen. Why would a billionaire be leaving her money marked with an old security symbol? Then someone touched her shoulder. She nearly screamed. It was Daniel. He was standing behind her. "Where did you get that?" Emma slowly turned. "From you." Daniel looked at the bill, then at her. "You weren't supposed to notice." Emma's heart began pounding. What is going on? Daniel looked toward the windows. The man in the dark coat was gone. "We need to talk." "About what?" "Your father." Emma stopped breathing. "My father." Daniel nodded. His name was Michael Reed. Emma stared at him. She hadn't heard her father's name from a stranger in years. Her father had disappeared when she was 11. Everyone had told her the same story. He abandoned the family. He left town. He never came back. Emma had spent her entire childhood believing he simply didn't want her anymore. Now a billionaire was standing in front of her, telling her that wasn't true. "How do you know my father?" Daniel lowered his voice. "Because he saved my life." Emma couldn't move. "What did you just say?" Daniel pulled out his phone. He opened an old photograph. A much younger Daniel stood beside another man. The man had dark hair, a tired smile, and the same eyes Emma saw in her own reflection every morning. Her father, Michael. Emma's hands began shaking. "Where did you get this?" "He worked for my father." "Doing what?" "Security." Daniel sat down. Emma sat across from him. For the first time, she noticed how tired the billionaire looked. Not physically, emotionally. "15 years ago," Daniel began, "my father discovered someone inside the company was stealing money. Millions. More." Emma swallowed. "Who?" "We never found out." Daniel continued. "My father hired Michael to investigate." Emma stared at the photograph. "He found evidence." "Then what happened?" "Someone discovered he had it." Daniel paused. "Michael disappeared." Emma whispered, "My father didn't abandon us." "No, then where did he go?" Daniel looked directly into her eyes. "We don't know." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "For 15 years I've hated him." "I know." "How?" "Because I watched you." Emma stared at him. "What?" Daniel immediately clarified. "Not like that." He looked uncomfortable. "After your father disappeared, I promised him something." "What promise?" "If anything happened to him, I'd make sure his daughter was safe." Emma shook her head. "Then why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't know who I could trust." She looked at the $10 bill. "Then why the money?" Daniel took a breath. "Because I needed to find out whether you were still living by something your father taught you." Emma frowned. "What did he teach me?" Daniel smiled sadly. "You probably don't remember. When Emma was 8 years old, her father had given her a $10 bill. It was her birthday. She remembered that. They had gone to a small restaurant. Her father had placed the bill in her hand. "What's this for?" little Emma had asked. Michael smiled. "Keep it." "Why?" "Because someday, somebody will need it more than you do." Emma had laughed. "I want candy." Her father laughed too. "Then buy candy." She had kept the bill for almost a year, until one winter afternoon she saw a boy outside a grocery store. He was cold. Emma gave him the $10. She had forgotten about it afterward, but her father never did. Years later, Daniel learned about that story, and he needed to know something, whether Michael's daughter had kept the same heart. So every morning, Daniel left her $10, not as a tip, as a test, but Emma had never spent the money. She had placed every bill into a small envelope. Daniel asked, "You still have them?" Emma nodded. "They're in my apartment." "All of them?" "Yes." Daniel smiled. "Good." "Why?" "Because one of them contains something you need." "Because one of them contains something you need." Emma rushed home after work. She opened the envelope, 312 $10 bills. She spread them across her bed. Nothing looked unusual. Then Daniel called. "Check the oldest one." Emma picked it up. "Now hold it beneath a UV light." She didn't have one. Daniel told her where to find one. 20 minutes later, she returned with a small ultraviolet flashlight. She turned off the lights, then switched it on. A faint message appeared. 3 words blue, 719. Emma's heart raced. "What does that mean?" Daniel answered, "I don't know yet." Then another message appeared. This one was on the second oldest bill. "Station, locker." Emma looked at Daniel. "This is some kind of treasure hunt." "No." Daniel's voice became serious. "It's a dead man's emergency plan." The next morning, Emma and Daniel went to Union Station. They found locker 19. Inside was a small metal box. Emma looked at Daniel. "Are you sure?" "No." She opened it. Inside was a flash drive, an old photograph, and a handwritten note. Emma unfolded the note. It contained only one sentence. "If Emma ever sees this, tell her I never left her." She couldn't breathe. She pressed the note against her chest. Daniel stood silently beside her. Then Emma asked, "Is he alive?" Daniel didn't answer. That was answer enough. They had no proof, but Michael had planned something. Something that had survived 15 years. They took the flash drive to a secure computer. There was only one file, a video. Michael appeared on screen, older, tired, but alive. Emma covered her mouth. "Emma," he said, "if you're watching this, I'm sorry." She began crying. "I didn't leave because I wanted to. I left because I discovered something that could put you and your mother in danger." Michael explained that the people stealing from the company had connections inside law enforcement. He couldn't trust anyone, so he disappeared, but he never stopped watching over his family. Then came the part Emma never expected. "I asked Daniel to protect you." The video paused. Then Michael said, "Daniel doesn't know everything." Emma looked at Daniel. Daniel stared at the screen. "What does that mean?" he whispered. Michael continued. "There is someone inside Crosswell Industries who knows where I am. Someone Daniel trusts." The video ended. Daniel immediately called his security team. Within hours, they discovered something terrifying. Someone had been accessing Daniel's private files for years, someone with executive-level clearance, someone who knew about Michael, someone who knew about Emma, and someone who knew about the $10 bills. The name was Victor Grant, Daniel's chief financial officer, the man who had been with his family for 20 years. Daniel confronted him. Victor didn't deny it. Instead, he smiled. "You finally figured it out." Daniel stared at him. "Where is Michael?" Victor leaned back. "Still alive." Emma stepped forward. "Where?" Victor looked at her. "Your father has been hiding because he knows what happens to people who expose powerful men." Daniel's security team arrested Victor, but one question remained. Where was Michael? 3 days later, Emma received a message. One sentence: "Come to the old Riverside Theater." Alone, she showed Daniel, "I'm coming with you." "No, Emma. My father disappeared for 15 years. She looked at him. "If he's there, I need to see him first." Daniel finally nodded. Emma entered the abandoned theater. The lights were off. She walked slowly across the empty stage. Then she heard a voice. "Emma." She stopped. A man stepped out of the darkness. Older. Gray hair, tired eyes, but she knew him instantly. Dad. Michael's eyes filled with tears. Emma ran toward him. For several seconds, neither could speak. Then she whispered, "Why didn't you come home?" Michael closed his eyes. "Because every time I wanted to, someone was watching. I thought you didn't love me." He shook his head. "I loved you enough to stay away." Emma cried against his shoulder. "You missed everything." "I know. My graduation. I know. My first job. I know. My mother's funeral." Michael's face broke. "I know." Emma stepped back. "Then why come back now?" Michael looked at her. "Because you're finally safe." Later that evening, Michael sat across from Daniel. For the first time in 15 years, the two men spoke face to face. "You kept your promise," Michael said. Daniel nodded. "She did too." Michael looked at Emma. "She still helps people." Daniel smiled. "That's why I kept leaving the $10. Emma looked at him. "Why didn't you just tell me?" "Because if I told you everything immediately, you could have been watched." The money was a signal. Yes, a test. Yes, and a way to communicate. Daniel nodded. Exactly $10 meant everything was safe. Emma looked at the bills. "So when you skipped one morning." Daniel nodded. "It meant danger." Emma suddenly remembered. The rainy Tuesday, the stranger, Daniel leaving through the kitchen. It all made sense. 6 months later, everything had changed. Michael was reunited with his family. Victor was facing federal charges. Daniel rebuilt Crosswell Industries. And Emma. She finally opened the bakery she had dreamed about since childhood. But Daniel didn't invest in it. Instead, he gave her something better, a building, with one condition. Emma had to reserve one table every morning for anyone who couldn't afford breakfast. The first morning the bakery opened, Daniel walked through the door. Emma smiled. "You're late." He looked at his watch. 8:10. "Exactly." He sat at the table. Emma brought him black coffee. Then she smiled. "Are you going to leave $10? Daniel reached into his wallet. He placed the bill on the table. Emma looked at it, then laughed. "Some things never change." Daniel smiled. "No." He looked around the bakery. "Some things are supposed to." Emma picked up the $10 bill. But instead of keeping it, she placed it into a glass jar beside the register. The label read, "For someone who needs it more." Every morning the jar grew. $10, 20, 30, sometimes more. And every morning somebody walked into that bakery who needed exactly what was inside. A father who had lost his job. A college student who hadn't eaten. An elderly woman who had forgotten her wallet. a teenager who needed bus fare. The $10 bill had become something bigger than money. It had become a message. You are not invisible. Someone sees you. Someone believes you can make it through another day. 1 year after Emma opened the bakery, she found an envelope beneath the glass jar. Her name was written on it. She opened it. Inside was a single $10 bill and a note from Daniel. It said, "You once asked why I kept giving you $10. The truth is, I wasn't trying to change your life. I was trying to remind you that your father's greatest gift was never money. It was the ability to make someone feel like they mattered." Emma smiled through tears. Then she looked across the bakery. Daniel was standing by the door. She called out, "Daniel." He turned, "Coffee tomorrow." He smiled, 8, 10. And $10. He reached into his wallet, "Always." Emma laughed because now she understood. The billionaire had never been buying her attention. He had never been testing whether she was worthy of his money. And he certainly hadn't been trying to make her fall in love with him. For nearly a year, that $10 bill had been a message from a missing father, a secret code, a promise, and a final test of kindness. But most importantly, it had connected two people who had spent years believing they had lost everything. And sometimes, the smallest amount of money can carry the biggest message. $10 can buy coffee. $10 can buy lunch. But in Emma's story, $10 brought a family home. And that's why Daniel never stopped leaving it. If this story touched your heart, ask yourself one question. If you had $10 left and someone desperately needed it, would you give it away? Tell me in the comments what you would do. And if you believe that small acts can create enormous changes, subscribe for more emotional stories with unexpected twists, powerful secrets, and unforgettable endings.